The Fiscal Responsibility Commission has announced that it will punish about 14 banks and financial institutions and other financial institutions allegedly granting loans without due process to state governments. According to the FRC chairman, Victor Murako, banks and other financial institutions that make themselves willing tools of fiscal carelessness by granting loans to some subnational governments without regard to due process will be sanctioned. The FRC boss says the commission is already engaging with loan institutions on the issue. Joining me to discuss this further is Chikambono, Rice business analyst, bright and early, in our Lagos headquarters studios. Great to have you.
Morning.
Is this a free money?
You notice that the report, they didn't mention anything about what conditions the banks violate, so let me put it out. What happens is that this institution called DMO, the Debt Management Office.
Yes.
Now, if you want to lend to the subnational governments, states and local governments especially, you need to, as a bank, a financial institution, get approval from the DMO before you can do that. So it's a condition precedent, usually, should be, before you disburse the loan. Now, let me look for the nice way to put it. The DMO, has been very busy, focusing on bigger issues for the country. Eurobonds, which we got $4 billion, our burgeoning debt profile, which even the Minister for Finance has said that we don't have debt problem, we just have revenue problem though. And so, because they're busy, in quote, they usually don't respond to the banks on time.
They're busy with the bigger issue.
They don't respond to the banks on time. These are requests by banks to lend to the state. And of course, 30 banks in Nigeria. Nigerian banks have the most competitive, industry in the whole of Africa. What happens now is that the banks will just wait, write follow-up letters. They don't get, instead of losing the deal to any other bank, they will just give her the loan and making her conditions subsequent. And that's why you hear the issue of non-compliance. So in an industry where you have about 30 banks or so, and the 14 are non-compliant, they can tell you that
it's an industry-wide issue.
It's an industry-wide issue because of the fact that DMO is very busy doing other bigger things and not responding on time to the request for approval by the Nigerian banks to lend to this subnational government.
The 14 banks by the Financial Responsibility Council did not mention the names.
No, they mentioned the names. They won't mention the names. They wouldn't mention the names. But, as I just told you, 14 out of 30, when we know that about 10 of them control about 80% of the business, and you can imagine that everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. But I guess the DMO has to reorganize and make sure they respond to the bank's request on a timely basis, and to make sure that that is done on a timely basis so that the banks won't,
Is there a part of lending to state governments that the banks can do without resort or recourse to the DMO? If a state government just says we just need $1 billion now in 24 hours.
It's even in the interest of the banks to get the DMO on board, because what the DMO does is basically, take that borrowing and juxtapose it on the existing portfolio of borrowings of the state and make sure that there's a viability in the state resources to be able to pay off that loan, and check the other terms and conditions of the loan that is in sync with the usual terms that the bank's state should borrow, and make sure that it's not for consumption. The state shouldn't really borrow from working capital. That's usually for long-term projects. And so that's basically it. So it's interesting for the banks to do that. But the issue is that, the banks wait and wait and wait. They don't get the feedback so approval they require. And the business waits for no one. And if you don't do it, the next bank
someone else is going to do it.
And
so it's a race. It's a bit of a competition here in the banking industry and state governments. Banks know that state governments do have money.
Yeah, but you see, the other thing is that it's not every state that the banks rush to lend money to. You can count in your fingers the number of states.
Because we could have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah, because these banks also know the states that have higher level of fiscal responsibility, higher level of IGRs, and such like, and that will pay back those loans. Because the banks have burned their fingers in the past. What happens is that a new government comes in play, and the first thing they do is to say, all the loans taken by my predecessor is null and void. It's happened several times in Nigeria. And the banks will start scampering to go and negotiate with the governor to get...
so despite the provisions of regulation, there are some states that could ask a bank for 5 billion naira by 9 a.m. and they could return it by 9 p.m.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, some states are that liquid.
Yeah, it's not very liquid, yeah.
I know.
I know.
You and I know.
We know.
Yeah, we're sitting down somewhere here. But let's talk about the bank's debiting accounts of chronic debtors. Can you remind us of the CBN's global standing instruction on this?
The global standing instruction works, and it's one of the good initiatives that Central Bank of Nigeria put in play. Now, what used to happen was that you borrow from Bank A and then abandon the borrowing, and then go to Bank B, because again, I thought about the competitive nature of the banking industry. You go to another bank and then go and open accounts. Now, so what the BVN, the global, this initiative is also tied to the advantage of having the BVN, because now with your BVN, anywhere you have account, it can be tied to you. But hitherto, it's just working for individual accounts. Central Bank will soon move it to corporate accounts, and it's helped because it means that if you borrow from Bank A, as you used to do in the past, and when your proceeds come in that you used to repay that loan, you abandon the Bank A and go to Bank B and open an account. The Bank A that you lent money to can trace it, your new account, and actually put the debit.
Can trace your history.
Yeah, history, yeah. And using your BVN and find out they have money in Bank B or Bank C and Bank D, and then tag that liquidity you have in that bank, and you use it to offset what you. So it has helped in recoveries for the banks, and it reflected in the NPLs. Reducing for the banking industry, even when the loan book has increased.
Why? Why is that happening?
Yeah, because of the fact that the recoveries are more. Recoveries are more. So there's no place to hide again for individual borrowers, especially. And so if you borrow before, you must pay. So I believe that when this is extended to the corporates, it will again have a very salutary impact. To the banking industry.
How quickly do you think this should extend to
I'm sure the CBN is working at the modalities to make that happen, because individual accounts is easier to manage than the corporate, the corporate names, because the company is a legal entity, and he must make sure that you match it very well, because the BVN you're using, the company doesn't have BVN. Is the individuals, the directors that have BVN.
Yes.
So you must make sure that everything is done very well. And I guess that's what CBN is trying to work out. But it's helped. The banks have commended it, and it has helped the banking industry in loan recoveries.
Yeah. Do you think we should still do name and shame? Did it work in the past? Has it ever worked?
There was some drama.
I don't know about name. I don't know about the shame.
There's a drama that one of the Nigerian big men actually called the bank and said, "Come on, you publish I'm owing 5 billion when I'm owing you 10 billion." So
is that a joke? Was that a joke?
Well, the way it was told, I know it was a joke. But the issue is this, that the credit system thrives in the better world on the role of shame. It thrives. One of the key planks of the credit system is the role of shame. The fact that your community, your associates, your peers, the
industry you operate
in, do not want to know. You don't want them to know that you borrowed and you didn't pay. But you see, in a country like ours, where there's no question of how you get your wealth.
To start with, or how you set up your business.
The rule of shame is limited.
Or what type of business you do.
The rule of shame is limited. The pastor will dance with you to the altar. Your chief will, your will give you titles. Nobody knows whether he killed anybody to raise the money. The rule of shame is limited. Indeed, in this country, I know that is the size of your loan is associated with your wealth. So you expected to
your status.
Once you have a billion-naira loan from a bank, it's expected that you have to change your car, move from downtown to the up areas. Everybody just people celebrate it that they got in the offer from the bank. So the role of shame in Nigeria, because it's societal values, is that the impact is limited.
So when names are published in the newspaper, for example, and I've seen a couple over the last few years in which you have 1 page, 2 page, 3 pages in the newspapers, who really reads them?
Yeah, but I mean, you see, there are still one or two people. I've known some individuals who like feel bad about it and protest that they didn't borrow. But there's some other people who just don't care. So there's some people of still integrity who feel bad when their names are associated with borrowing and not paying. But substantially, because of that, again, societal value, most people don't care how you get your money, and people don't, or they ascribe it to their political enemies. Some people want to push them down, Oh, the next thing is you see a letter from a lawyer saying, you say we're owing you 1 billion. It's you that's actually owing us 2 billion. The bank is owing us, so start seeing things like that. So the rule of shame is actually, in this land and climb, is limited because of the society that we thrive in.
Do you think we have another a tool that could be used?
Well, I mean,
Looks like we've tried everything.
No, it's not. I mean, this global standing instruction is one thing that has worked for me. I know it has worked. The BVN also has helped. Because with the BVN, you have no place to hide. Yeah. Every bank that you have money, it can be traced. Yeah. And so with the mandate the central bank has, the banks have, you can actually grab your money, whatever it is. And I have a feeling that once CBN finishes working it out and extends it to the corporates, it will help the lending. Yeah, it will help the lending industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you do that, perhaps you're looking at some bankruptcies or insolvencies because some companies, organizations that look very robust on the outside, by the time you grab all the hidden money, you could be looking at
empty shells.
Empty shells.
But I think the right thing to do is to borrow and pay. Borrow and pay. I mean, you have a contract from MTN, from Mobile, from Shell, a bank depositors fund, not the bank money, because they know bank has money. It deposits money. The poor woman there who is selling water and bread somewhere that opens a savings account in the bank. The pensioner who has his money in the bank, those are the monies the banks aggregate and lend out. Not the bank, but the bank has no money, really. So that's the money that you take and you don't want to pay back. So you take that money, do your contract
so whether it's 1 billion, 2 billion,
yes.
It's an aggregate of every poor Nigerian's money.
Remember that the AMCON statistics said about 350 people, names,
account
about almost 70% of the 5 trillion that is out there.
Yes.
And these are the people who have the PJs, private jets, the big people of the society, the billionaires. When the society, these blogs publish billionaires, those are names that enter it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, some depositors' funds are suffering and not being repaid. So, I mean, there must be change also in the societal values, how we look at things.
Let's see how the GSI will work for the corporates.
Yeah.
But again, let's be prepared also for the consequences. Because I call that as the rich also cry.
The rich will cry. If you borrow, you should pay back.
If you borrow, you should pay back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chikambono, Arise business analyst here. You're watching the Global Business Report here on Arise News.